Tonight, a sentence for the Saskatchewan man who abducted his daughter to prevent her from getting the COVID-19 vaccine. Also, a life sentence with no chance of parole for 18 years for one of the men charged in connection with the death of Megan Gallagher. Plus, the Saskatchewan Rough Riders re-signed their man behind center for another year.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Friday, December the 6th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Good evening, and thank you for watching. It has been 4 years since Megan Gallagher was killed, and tonight, one of her killers is behind bars, facing a sentence today as Gallagher's family looked on. Ashwarya Duda has more from Saskatoon.
Megan Gallagher's family was in court Friday afternoon to see the man who admitted to killing her. It's a scene that's going to be repeated 3 more times when the other accused stand trial for the murder. A Saskatoon judge gave 29-year-old Robert James Joseph Thomas a life sentence with no chance of parole for 18 years. Justice Daryl Laback told Thomas he had forsaken his ability to walk free and called the killing callous and unfathomable. Then he told the family that the path is long, but he hopes the family is now one step closer to the end of this path.
None of this will ever bring Megan back is what it comes down to, and it didn't need to happen. So the fact that we have to go through this process again for at least 4 more people is really challenging.
Thomas pleaded guilty earlier this year to second-degree murder in the death of Gallagher, who was 30 when she went missing. Last month, the judge issued a publication ban on the proceedings, including the case details, sentencing arguments, and victim impact statements. He said it was to ensure a fair trial for the other accused whose trials have not begun. When asked if justice was served, Brian paused.
I don't know if I'll ever be able to answer that. The justice is just a part of a society that we live in. The young man is going to go to be incarcerated for a long time, and there are no winners in this.
Ashwarya Duda, CBC News, Saskatoon.
To Regina, where the man who abducted his daughter to prevent her from getting the COVID-19 vaccine was also sentenced today. 55-year-old Michael Jackson was sentenced to 12 months in prison and 2 years of probation. But because he's already served more than 500 days in remand, he's walking free. Jeffrey Tram has that story.
A Saskatchewan man who hid his daughter from her mother so that she wouldn't have to take the COVID-19 vaccine was sentenced Friday morning, and he's not facing any jail time. In April, a jury found Jackson guilty of abducting his daughter back in November 2021. Jackson did not return the child to her mother after a visit. She was 7 years old at the time and was missing for more than 100 days. Police finally found the pair in Virden, BC after tracking Jackson's phone. The Crown was looking for a harsher sentence, including more jail time. However, she says she's satisfied with the judge's explanation of her decision.
I'm deeply appreciative of the court. The judge obviously took the law and all the facts under very careful consideration, and she laid out a very well-written and well-reasoned decision, which really spoke to all of the factors at play in this particular case, the background, the mitigating, negating factors, and a deep consideration of the law across Canada.
Jackson will have to abide by several conditions, including no contact with his daughter and her mother, who is also his ex-wife. He will also have to serve 100 hours of community service. Jeffrey Tram, CBC News, Regina.
Police chiefs in Regina and Saskatoon are applauding new efforts to fight street crime. On Thursday, the province introduced new legislation that, if passed, would allow police to seize potential weapons without laying charges. Helena Mahalik reports.
Well, I think anything to reduce crime, I'm all for.
Regina's police chief is on board with anything that would allow officers to seize large knives or bear spray from would-be criminals. The Saskatchewan government introduced new legislation on Thursday called the Safe Public Spaces Act. It would allow police to seize items that gangs often use in crimes, such as bear spray, machetes, and sawed-off guns, even if a crime hasn't been committed or no charges are being laid. Bear spray attacks have become more frequent in recent years, with incidents at annual fairs, public swimming pools, and malls. There have been approximately 3,000 reports of bear spray use in Saskatchewan over the last 5 years. Recently, the government has tried to crack down on bear spray use with bigger financial penalties. People using bear spray as a weapon could face fines of up to $100,000, but there have been no reports of that happening. In many cases, the guns police have seized recently have been sawed-off long guns. Under these new rules, it would be illegal to alter weapons if the intent is to make them easier to hide. The government says municipalities and First Nations communities need to opt in to the new rules before police can go around seizing items. It's only been a day, but Prince Albert's mayor has already expressed interest in the bill. He believes it could make his community safer.
I see it being of value.
We asked the police chiefs in both Saskatoon and Regina what they think of the legislation.
Although it's very new, and I don't fully understand yet the implications of it, the potential benefits of it, anything that would work to speak to those three things: point of sale, passing it from one person to another, and the sanctions is of value to me.
Any restriction we can have to reduce, especially young people being able to access knives, weapons, bear spray, etc., I support 100%.
The bill was introduced Thursday, but won't be debated or possibly passed until spring. Helena Mahalik, CBC News, Saskatoon.
Across the country today, events marking the 35th anniversary of the mass shooting at Polytechnic, Montreal. 14 women were killed that day, 13 of them students. In Montreal today, community groups marched. They hung white ribbons to remember those who've died because of femicide. People also laid bouquets of white roses at the university. 13 other women were injured in that attack by the man who eventually killed himself. A vigil also took place in Regina, where women's advocates say gender violence is still a problem.
We still have acts of gender violence happening all around us all the time, that those attitudes are alive and well. And so gathering helps us to remember why we need to persevere, why we need to keep talking, and why it's important for us to support initiatives, support programming, support the people who are doing the work on the ground to ensure that there are safe spaces for people who are targeted because of all people, but in this case, people who are targeted because of their gender.
Arnaud says more needs to be done when it comes to gender-based inequality, including economic barriers, discrimination, and sexual violence against women. The monarchy has a new representative in Saskatchewan. The Prime Minister has named Bernadette McIntyre as the 24th Lieutenant Governor of Saskatchewan. McIntyre previously held executive roles with SGI and Wascana Centre Authority. She's been a longtime supporter of sports in the province and was inducted into the Saskatchewan Sports Hall of Fame for helping grow curling in our province. Lieutenant governors typically serve terms of at least 5 years, and McIntyre will replace the outgoing Lieutenant Governor, Russ Morasti. The provincial government says a date for the installation for the new Lieutenant Governor will be announced shortly. News for those who've bought event tickets. Back in August, Ticketmaster agreed to grant a credit of $45 to some Canadian customers. And now, a Regina court is moving the class action lawsuit forward. The company is accused of charging Canadian customers drip fees, which are costs beyond the actual ticket price. People who used the site between January and June of 2018 are eligible. The lawyer behind the suit says there could be up to 100,000 people here eligible.
$45 isn't going to get you into Taylor Swift anytime soon, but that's the kind of loss that people suffered, and recovering millions and millions of dollars for the class is important. It's also important that we were a part of stopping Ticketmaster from continuing this practice, which they might have argued was legal, but it was certainly deceptive and hard on people.
Ticketmaster should be emailing those affected in the new year. If you don't get an email but think you should, merchant says reach out to his firm. Hopefully, second time is a charm for a Saskatchewan family that just sold a rare case of hockey cards. Thursday night, a box containing unopened 1979-1980 OPG hockey cards sold at auction for $2.52 million US. The case contained as many as 27 Wayne Gretzky rookie cards. One of those, in mint condition, has sold for more than $200,000 in the past. The sale comes after a previously botched deal in April. It fell through after the money was never wired to the auction house. A mild day in Saskatoon compared to earlier in the week. Lots of people out enjoying the trails along the South Saskatchewan River on fat tire bikes or walking dogs. So is this melting going to continue, or are we in for another dump of snow? Ethan is back after the break with his full forecast. Stay with us. The provincial auditor released the second volume of her report this week, and on the list of Tara Clement's issues with the government, concerns about Sask Power energy targets, the Ames healthcare payroll system, and hotel rooms for social services clients. But one topic in particular really got the Morning Edition political panel talking.
The other thing that stood out in the auditor's report is this, and got a lot of attention in the House, was ownership of farmland and whether it's foreign or not. And there was a bit of back and forth there with the new ag minister, the premier, and the opposition leader.
And this guy too, and
this guy as well. Yeah, we'll get into that in a second. The thing that stood out to me from that was that the Farmland Security Board that oversees this, the auditor found that in half the cases they looked at, they weren't checking for declarations of ownership. They're also in Saskatchewan, it's after the fact. So you go check after the fact, and the auditor found that you're not doing this in a timely enough manner and thorough enough manner. And the third thing was, if you're actually found someone that was in violation of any of these things, there's no escalation procedures to fine or penalize. So the question remains, is there foreign ownership of farmland? Well, yes, there is. How much of it is happening? Are there sweetheart deals that people are getting? Is someone turning a blind eye? Is this board not have enough resources to do the work they're doing? Is it too convoluted? A lot of questions there that the government and the ag minister weren't necessarily able to answer.
Yeah, Murray, I heard we played some tape of the ag minister and you asking questions where it sounded as though you were talking about two different auditors' reports.
Yeah, it was an alternate universe we were in at that particular I critique government policy for a living. This is what you do as a political columnist. The provincial auditor's report at the best of times is halcyon days for someone like us because it points to what's wrong and in need of critiquing government policy. There's normally a lot there. This was an embarrassment of riches. Pro tip for the government, what you don't want to do is when I can get 3 or 4 columns out of the provincial audit report, give me 3 or 4 more by the stupidity of your answers. And this is the problem that we had not just with Mr. Harrison, and I'll cut him some slack as his first scrum and maybe not really being as articulate and polished as in terms of his answers, in terms of compared with other ministers we've seen in the past. But I do think this points to a large problem in this way. Agriculture has been the backbone of this Sask Party government, as everybody knows. And one of the reasons is we have successive really good agriculture ministers, and Bob Benrud and Lyle Stewart and Dave Merritt. And there's diverse problems in the agriculture front. But there are actually big problems that kind of actually unite and worry everybody out in the farm. And one of them is land prices. We know that land prices are going up. We know that they're going up partly because of out-of-province interests. We sometimes know who those out-of-province interests are, but we don't, as the auditor pointed out, always know. And by the way, not as Adam pointed out, guess who's not looking into this in the depth that it needs to? The Farmland Security Board. Now, this raises questions as to why they're not looking into it. Is it a matter of resources? Is it a matter of policing? Scott Moe's answer after the mess up with the Daryl Harrison scrum was, well, what we're really talking about is illegal farmland ownership. Yeah. We now recognize, as the auditor told us, that there were 140 cases of foreign farmland ownership in the period, but mostly we're looking at, quote, illegal farmland ownership. Well, the auditor couldn't find it, so in essence, Scott Moe was asking for a tip line. If you know any cases, phone. Oh, that's what the Farmland Security Corps. This isn't turn in a poacher. This is basically dealing with a very serious issue. To be quite frank, that requires probably a good investigation, good investigative reporter to take through a thorough look at land titles as to how many of these go through. But the reality is there's 40,000 of these in the province each year, and that might not even be the biggest issue in terms of land tract action. It might be in the area of leasing, as the provincial auditor said, where it's even harder to track. So we need to take this seriously, and I guess one of the problems the government has right now, beyond the fact that they can't articulate the problem or even acknowledge it while everybody in rural Saskatchewan is whispering about it, is the fact that there might be the suspicion that these are people that are doing political donations to the party, etc. For their own sake, they probably would be wise to take a serious look at, as opposed to giving people like me fodder for another 15 columns.
This weather update is brought to you by Mercedes-Benz Regina, proud member of the Capital Automotive Group.
And our weather specialist, Ethan Williams, joins me now. What a gorgeous Friday.
Yeah, the temperature's warming up across the province. Puddles on the roads, feeling like spring or maybe fall, depending on where you think of it. I guess we're in December. We're kind of sort of almost in the middle right now. But yeah, not hard to see where we have the frontal boundary in the province here, because that warmer air to the south and west of it, and on the other side, much chillier, still into the minus teens in portions of far northeastern Saskatchewan. But look at that, Maple Creek, the hot spot today, getting up close to double digits above zero. Now that frontal boundary you've noticed is attached to this low pressure system up in northern Alberta. This is the first of two weather makers that we're watching in Saskatchewan for this weekend. The first moving through northern Saskatchewan overnight into the early morning hours of Saturday. Possibly some freezing rain once again for portions of the Churchill region. The snow continuing to hang on to eastern portions of the especially far north for the morning on Saturday. Then we're left with kind of a sun-cloud mix for the south and mostly cloudy skies for the north. And this is when Act 2 comes in. Later on Saturday evening and very early Sunday morning, this band of rain starts to move in, Kindersley through Regina, down to around the Weyburn area. I think there's a good chance with temperatures dropping that this will be freezing rain as we get into the early morning hours Sunday before that band changes over to some pretty heavy pockets of snow at time right along that Highway 16 corridor. By Sunday morning, though, southern Saskatchewan, we kind of get a break in the action as the center of this low pressure is right over us. And then that snow begins to move southeastward. And for Regina and for Yorkton, well, Yorkton, I think you're getting the snow a little earlier in the day, but especially Regina, Weyburn, Estevan, it's kind of the afternoon hours and later into Sunday when we'll see the snow, although it will have tapered off somewhat, and then just leaving us mostly cloudy with flurries or possible showers for Monday. So again, I think along this section here, this is snowfall, but for Kindersley, Moose Jaw, Regina, Weyburn, Estevan, maybe a good 2 to 4 millimeters, just enough to cause issues on the highways for Sunday morning. This, I think, best represents what we're looking for snowfall totals, 10 to 20 centimeters, Saskatoon and eastward along the Highway 16 corridor, maybe 5 to 10 for southern Saskatchewan. For the north, a couple other systems moving through, bringing maybe about 5 to 10 centimeters as we get into kind of the next few days here. This is just from a few periods of snow that'll be moving through, but not one large storm system. We have the rain, we have the snow, and yes, with this system, this is a clipper, so we're going to get some wind picking up later into Saturday, a little bit gusty along southeastern sections, really picking up, this maybe even gusting 80 in some parts of the southwest for Sunday. Blowing snow a possibility into southern Saskatchewan and some central regions as we get later into Sunday. So for Regina, again, maybe 2 to 4 millimeters late on Saturday into early Sunday before that transitions into snowfall, 5 to 10 centimeters. And then Monday, we're just left with some flurries before, yes, temperatures drop a little bit closer to seasonal. For Saskatoon, that 5 to 10 centimeters falls overnight Saturday, Sunday, another 5 to 10 on Sunday, minus double digits possible as we head into Tuesday, but then the warm up back into next week. So another round of snow for areas that have quite a bit of it on the ground already, Sam.
I am glad I'm getting winter tires on Sunday.
Me too.
2 weather makers. How lucky are we?
Yeah, there you go.
Fake smile.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
It was a big day for Saskatoon's Maya Schwinghammer. She won her first career World Cup individual medal on Friday. In freestyle skiing moguls, Schwinghammer will come home from the competition in Sweden with a bronze medal. The 23-year-old also previously collected a medal in dual moguls. Congratulations. And we'll be back after the break. The Saskatchewan Roughriders have locked up their man behind centre for 2025. Trevor Harris has re-signed with the Green and White. It's a one-year deal, something common in the CFL these days. The 38-year-old Ohio native threw for more than 3,200 yards and 20 touchdowns last season, even though he missed 6 games. Harris says his priority for next season is playing all 18 games.
Being under center for all 18 games is a big thing that I want to be able to provide for a team. You know, I unfortunately just had somebody fall into my knee last year, an unfortunate situation. But getting this deal done now, they know who's under center. We don't have to. And to me, like, the big relief to me was this team didn't have to think very long who they wanted to be their guy. And to me, that means a lot to me personally. I don't like to talk about myself personally very often, but that meant a lot to me personally, knowing that they knew that they didn't need to, fish around and see what else is out there. They knew that they wanted me to be their guy. And so that was something that meant a lot to me. And to me, I think it sets a direction for your team because, when you know the guy that's under center, we know a lot of our guys on offense. We have a ton of guys back. I think it's time, if you're, somebody that's been a Rider fan your whole life, I think it's time to start getting those expectations and that hope meter a little bit higher.
As for who will back up Harris, that's not clear. Shea Patterson went 2-3-1, filling in as the starter last season, but his contract expires in February, so we'll have to wait and see what happens there and in free agency. A little weird to talk about football in December, but let's look at our weather for the last time.
Yeah, well, it'll be warm enough to play a little bit of football, maybe outside, if there wasn't so much snow on the ground. But temperatures tonight after a warm Friday, not dropping all that much through south and central, kind of freezing to -5. Snow continuing, especially in eastern sections of the north, where we could pick up another few centimeters there. Coming to an end, though, in western sections. And as you can see, as we head through the morning hours Saturday, that begins moving out. Might even see the sun come out a little bit into western sections of the north. And temperatures, though, a bit wide-ranging still once again, as they were for us on Friday. For south and central, starting the day right around that freezing mark. So nice and warm, and we'll probably get up a couple of degrees or so above the freezing mark again, especially in southern sections where we're seeing that sunshine. And then the first remnants of that system beginning to move in before that storm moves in for Sunday, Sam, and likely not making driving so great for Sunday and possibly Monday, too.
Yay.
Here we go again.
Thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
And that is it for us this week. For news anytime, you can head to our website, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, or you can download the CBC News app on your smartphone or tablet. Thanks for watching. Have a lovely weekend.